Today is World College Radio Day.
Día Mundial de la Radio Universitaria, la radio como nunca antes la has escuchado.
College Radio Day is ready to rock the world.
Aujourd'hui, c'est World College Radio Day.
Idag är det World College Radio Day.
La giornata mondiale delle radio studentesche.
World College Radio Day. A day like you've never witnessed before.
Get a head start into the day's breaking stories and latest reports. Catch RK News on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM, powered by Rappler.com and Voice of America. Stay vigilant. Keep informed. RK News on the voice of the Blue Eagle. Fearless, true, and blue. Mga tinista at mga kapanalig, ito ang balita ng kabutihan, balita ng katotohanan. Radyo Veritas 846 sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Halina't makinig at makilahok sa mga isyu at usapan tungkol sa ating pananampalataya at lipunan. Radyo Totoo, Radyo ng Simbahan, Radyo Veritas sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Ready na ba kayo?
World College Radio Day.
World College Radio Day.
Bonjour, vous écoutez le jour mondial des radios universitaires.
Estás escuchando el Día Mundial de la Radio Universitaria.
State ascoltando il World College Radio Day.
This is World College Radio Day.
For more info about World College Radio Day, please visit worldcollegeradioday.com or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
JustCom Music Ministry. Music that uplifts the soul. Follow JustCom PH on Spotify and JustCom Music on YouTube. We are also on iTunes and Deezer.
Palalimin ang kamalayan sa mga isyong napapanahon. Makisangkot at makiisa kasama ang simbahang lingkod ng bayan. Ang Social-Political Apostolate ng Kapisanan ni Jesus. Ito ang Kwentuhang Bayan mula alas 11 ng umaga tuwing Biyernes dito lang sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Dahil naniniwala kami na posible ang isang mas mabuting lipunan at maaari itong simulan sa isang kwentuhan. Radyo Katipunan is now online. See our live feed on facebook.com/Radyo Katipunan. Check out our Instagram and our Twitter at Radyo Katipunan and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Radyo Katipunan FM for more exclusive content. Lead X. X is for the extracurricular life of the Ateneo College students. X is for the X factor that transforms them into leaders, into men and women for others. X is for Lead X. Lead X. Tara na't simulan ng inyong umaga sa mga magagandang refleksyon tungkol sa ating buhay at pananampalataya. Kasama sina Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle ng Manila, Father J. Boy Gonzales at Father Nono Alfonso ng Kapisanan ni Jesus, Father Cali Llamado ng Manila Cathedral, at Binibining Ressa Singson Kaupeng ng Light of Jesus Community dito sa Kapit Pandasal sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Hi, I'm David Ellison of Megadeth, and on Friday, October 2nd, students around the world come together for World College Radio Day.
Quality radio like you've never heard it before.
World College Radio Day är redo att rocka världen.
World College Radio Day, c'est la journée internationale de la radio étudiante.
Solidarität vereint Studierende aus aller Welt.
This year, more than ever, students from all around the world will unite for World College Radio Day.
Día Mundial de la Radio Universitaria. La radio como nunca antes la
is an international platform where students can make their voices heard and bring future generations together.
Самый лучший день для студентов, которые любят радио.
For more information, please visit worldcollegeradioday.com.
Man, I love college. Do I really have to graduate, or can I just stay here for the rest of my life?
Atin yan! Catch the latest news about the latest happenings in and around the Ateneo. Atin yan! Be in the know and get to know persons and personages in the Ateneo. Atin yan! Atinian! Ateneo yan! Atin yan! Fly high, Blue Eagle flying.
Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay Atenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Radyo, Kawal ni Ignacio, Katipunero sugo, todo sa kayod, punong at tulong. Ipag the Blue Eagle, galing hiding at tigil, blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan.
Follow at Radyo Katipunan in our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter.
Jesuit Music Ministry, music that uplifts the soul. Follow JustCom PH on Spotify and JustCom Music on YouTube. We are also on iTunes and Deezer.
Basil Valdez, the Apo Hiking Society, Parokya ni Edgar, Bukas Palad, the Ateneo Glee Club, and many more. All homegrown talents at the Ateneo de Manila University. Get to know the current music environment at the Ateneo. Tune in to Himig Ateneo. Himig Ateneo. Listen to the Blue Eagles sing. Himig Ateneo. Rejoice, refresh, renew, and reflect. Join us for an hour of music that uplifts the soul. Listen to your favorite Jesuit music ministry artists. This is JMM Radio. JMM Radio. Get your day's dose of inspirational music. Tune in to JMM Radio every Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Only here on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. We are now on YouTube. Watch all of our live episodes plus exclusive content in our channel at Radyo Katipunan FM. Don't forget to click subscribe and hit the bell to get the latest updates.
Get your daily dose of inspiration through our music. Follow JustCom PH on Spotify and JustCom Music in YouTube. To open our eyes and ears that we may see the face of Christ and hear His voice in our midst. For 28 years, Jesuit Communications has been promoting the Catholic faith and serving the nation through both traditional and new media. Hear us tackle national issues in light of Christian values on Usapang Kapatid, Pasakalye, and Radio Veritas. Watch our uplifting reflections on Kapet Pandasal and The Word Exposed, as well as our acclaimed TV specials. Listen to the inspiring and soothing music of Jesuit Music Ministry's original artists as you read our spiritually enriching books. To learn more about JustCom's mission of evangelization and education, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and our website, justcom.ph. To give a face to the faceless and a voice to the voiceless, that we may recognize Christ in them and hear His story in theirs.
Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
You are listening to World College Radio Day.
Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Johnny.
Hi, I'm Guy.
And I'm Will. We're from the band Coldplay, and we support College Radio Day.
Hey, this is Sean Lennon, and I support College Radio.
Estás escuchando el Día Mundial de la Radio Universitaria.
Hey everybody, this is Grace Potter. Thank you for supporting World College Radio Day.
Salut, vous écoutez le Jour mondial des radios universitaires.
Hi, this is Jeremiah Freites from the Lumineers, and I support World College Radio Day.
Hi, I'm Alanis Morissette, and I support college radio. But I won't do your homework. Please don't ask me.
And I love college. Hey! This is World College Radio Day.
Radyo Katipunan, 87.9 FM.
Radyo, 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 radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo, radyo, radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpa at tama. Buhay Atenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela. Radyo, radyo, Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, Katipunero sugo, todo sa kayod, tunong at tulong. Lipad na Blue Eagle, galing giting at tigil, blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, radyo, Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Radyo, radyo, Katipunan.
All Kaps, mga Atenista, it's time to level up! Your talk variety program showcasing the best in media and other fields. As we feature the most loved personalities and the best practices of what we truly refer to as Magis. Together with multi-awarded multimedia guru Mr. Noel Ferrer, let's all level up every Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m. here on Radyo Katipunan, 87.9 FM. All Kaps, mga kapamilya, kapuso, kapatid, kabarkada, mga katipuneros. It's time to level up with your host, multi-awarded multimedia guru Noel Ferrer here on All Kaps, Ateneo Level Up.
So all good, all ready, all the best. As always, we shall level up in terms of relevance and goodwill. And I'm fortunate to have our friends and colleagues from Radyo Katipunan while waiting for our guest today. So, ang maganda, we're celebrating World College Radio Day. So, World Radio College Day, whatever. But we
World
have
College Radio Day.
We have our bosses here to grace this occasion. Very important. Ang nagpasimula nito, and for 2 years, we haven't had our anniversary celebration yet, but it seems like we're celebrating every week kasi mukhang parang may ganap. So after this, we're having the Marian event, and then pagkatapos hindi natin mamamalayan Pasko na. So palaki yung mga initiatives natin, and we have this person to thank. Father Nono Alfonso is joining us. Hello, Father. Kumusta ka?
Thank you. I'm fine. Why not cry?
I still can't believe you're an introvert. But Father, ano yung significance ng World College Radio Day?
Well, I was able to attend locally, merong celebration or merong meeting, gathering yung mga college radios in the Philippines. I was able to attend last year. First time na nag-attend yung Radyo Katipunan. And hulaan mo kung ilan ang college radios in the Philippines.
Ilan?
Mga 40 lang. And the oldest of course is DZUP. Yeah. Something like 30 plus years. So sila lagi ang convenor, and sabi nila we have to grow in number yung mga college radios. In the US marami yung halos lahat ng mga colleges merong college radios. So of course, mahalaga yun, communication is of course vehicle for community building, and so a university is a community, so we need communications, and that is the function of radio. So the more radios there are, the more communities and the better communities we have.
Ang galing-galing ko, Gigi Alfonso yung nasa UP, di ba? So, yun nga, parang they're growing it, but it seems like we've overtaken them somehow kasi ang plus factor sa mga Jesuita, nagmimisa kayo. And it seems like sila Justin have tackled that kanina in the morning program when they kicked off the event kanina. Kasi parang it seems like the masses, parang because of the masses, parang yung keeping the faith, diba? Yun yung nagpataas ang ratings natin talaga. So how significant was the leap, Justin?
Yun nga, na-mention ko yun kaninang umaga dun sa Good Morning Ateneo, na parang it was an anchor for all the programs that we have. Parang it started with the daily mass na we created a routine. Syempre yun nga kasi when things happened, yung mga itong pandemic and the lockdown, parang tumigil ang mundo para sa marami sa atin. And somehow the mass somehow the mass actually gained parang brought us to parang it gained traction for us. Kaya parang yun from the mass tuloy-tuloy na, parang unti-unting naka-recover yung mga tao dun sa normal nilang buhay. Dahil nga siguro, we have this regularity. We promoted this regularity with, of course, starting with the daily.
That's true. And now we're not burdened by franchises like some media outfits. So now we've crossed over online. Di ba? Parang, we'll talk about that later with Maria. Kasi nga parang unang tinira Inquirer, tapos nun Rappler, tapos naging ABS-CBN, and then now even Facebook. No? So Father Nono, it's not a problem. It's no longer a problem to get franchises, or we still need a franchise for Radyo Katipunan.
Actually, Radyo Katipunan is registered sa National Telecommunications Commission, NTC. We are given a license as community radio. Wala namang bayad, pero we have to renew that every month. So we are actually a community radio. That's why it's 87.9 FM. Narinig tayo around Ateneo, 5 kilometers around Ateneo.
Yeah. But then parang nag-expand 'yon because if we're posted on Facebook and YouTube, parang dumami talaga yung mga kapanalig at pwedeng makinig. Yeah. So, 'yon. So parang
yun na, kapanalig.
Kapanalig, veritas yun.
Veritas yun.
Pero tayo
okay na rin. So, we also have here, i-welcome na rin natin sa pamilya natin sa Radyo Katipunan, ang pumalit or parang ang bago nating kasama, si Brother Ed Colmenares of Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan. Hello, brother. Gaano kayo kabanal?
Malayong-malayo kay Father Nono.
Malapit lang yun, ha?
Welcome.
what's in store with your program dun sa Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan?
Well, at least for Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, we're still continuing our slot with Jesuit Hour, trying to use our platform here with Radyo Katipunan, like what you mentioned, to build community, but also at the same time, part of that is also advocating issues on social justice and political empowerment. So I'm still trying to figure out the ropes here, especially this will be my first time na ako yung magiging regular na anchor kung sakali ng
you're a natural.
No.
Ang maganda lang doon, well, kanina na-mention din yun, no? yung praxis part, di ba? Yung kasi yung eloquensya, sapiensya, nakikita na natin doon sa mga nag-anchor, no? Pero the praxis part ought to be with the communities, di ba? So, kayo yung link doon sa communities. And we'd want to see that, yung tipong kayo naghahanap ng social involvement, yung mga estudyante, kayo talaga yung magtutulay noon. So, yun, parang lingkod bayan. So, that would be nice. Sana humaba yung buhok mo sa pag-anchor mo dito sa
pinapaiksi ko na yan. Para hindi halata yung stress.
Speaking of iksian ng buhok, eto na, pumasok na ang kasama natin sa Jesuit Music Ministry, si Brother Lester Bendiola. Hello, brother. Hello, Lester.
Brother.
Grabe naman si Sir Noel. Pareho kami ng hairstyle ni Brother Ed.
Kaya nga. Pwede.
Oo, at nagtabi pa kayo ha. Nagtabi pa kayo sa
daw yung mga shows, maganda yun, di ba? Integration. Kasi ikaw, you do a takeover of Jesuit Music Ministry artists, di ba? JMM artists.
Yes.
Sa show mo. Sarap nga nun eh. But, what is in store? I know you're so busy and you've just committed to another one. So we were talking about the World College Radio Day, and now you're busy with the Marian thing this October.
Yes, we are busy preparing for our online concert happening on October 24. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be aired here also on Radyo Katipunan. That's at 7:30 p.m. Ayun, medyo busy preparing, tapos mag-shoot po kami sa isang araw. Tapos, sir, bukod doon, i-promote na natin yung isang bagong labas sa ating kanta today. Pwede ba?
Yes, go. And we'll play it later, no?
We'll play
it.
Yeah.
So we're also busy working on an album. Bukod dun sa mga online concerts natin, we co-produced with Sir Noel Christmas album with that's performed by Noel Ferrer. So it's a combination of Jesuit Music Ministry songs and mainstream OPM songs. And so today we released the first single which is Paskong Walang Hanggan, composed by none other than Maestro Ryan Cayabyab. Nasa Spotify and all digital music platforms na po yan.
We'll make them listen to it later. Words by Jose Javier Reyes, and then arranged by Paula Zarate and mixed by John Levy Sanchez. So, yun nga yung maganda dyan. Parang this is the first solo rendition kasi di ba we heard that rendered by choir San Miguel, and then yung even the Ateneo Chamber singers sang it. Parang first at saka hindi, let's give them the good news. Si Maestro Ryan Cayabyab kasi yung binigay lang na permission sa amin was to record, di ba, sa start. So, i-record lang sa Spotify. Ngayon, pwede na natin gamitin sa Radyo Katipunan on an unlimited basis yung kantang yon. So, papahiram niya yung kantang yon para i-air natin sa ating station. Alam naman nila na non-commercial at wala tayong kinikita dito at lahat dito ay gratis at pagmamahal lang natin sa station at kay Father Nono kasi pag nawala siya, mawawala din lahat ng mga to. So, yun. But you have more songs. So, you're doing another album, di ba, Lester?
Yung mga songs for the Marian concert, we're releasing it as an album afterwards. Yes. And then, pwede na natin siguro din i-announce that we're collaborating with Arete for the annual Noel Christmas concert.
It's the third one.
So, tapos yung mga songs ng Jesuit Music Ministry artists doon, we are also going to release it digitally.
Ganda. So that's it. Pero sinabi na ni Father Nono, trinay ko siyang i-convince na pwedeng magsimbang gabi sa gabi, hindi daw. Umaga
5 a.m.
5 a.m. daw sa December. Father Nono, why is that?
Because that's the traditional simbang gabi and yun nga, di ba, yung mga maraming mga tao, well, nostalgic pa rin, gusto nilang maibalik yung dati. Oh, parang kanta, sana maulit muli.
So yun, sabi ko, it's a burden on the Jesuits but they took it on. Mas gusto nilang gumising ng maaga kaysa matulog ng late.
Correct.
So, yun ang mangyayari. So, ikaw ang problema sa choir mo. So, yung mga tulog na boses, gigisingin mo talaga sa umaga, Lester.
Yes.
Lagot ka dyan.
Patay tayo dyan.
And now, we also have the youngest member of our team. Actually, hindi ko alam kung ikaw ba yung youngest daw sa the whole of Radyo Katipunan, Max? With all the organizations, parang nag-iiba-iba na ng mga tao. Pero hayaan mo lang, ikaw pinakabata sa paningin namin at pinaka-in-demand sa mga taong nanggugulo. No?
Oh my God!
Max, you want clap back?
Hi, so on Clapback, we continue talking about movies and being a break from your break in the middle of the week from your studies. So yes, we're doing okay, and we'll be back second week of October as usual, right after we get our things done for LFC. So I just wanted to say on behalf of Loyola Film Circle, thank you everyone for signing up, and we can't wait to see you over the next 2 weeks during our grand assembly. So see you there. Thank you so much.
Ang galing kasi this is a very action-packed week because we just had the turnover. Yun ba yung tawag ng Father no? Turnover ni Father Jet kay Father Bobby Yap. They just had a mass and then eventually you had an episode with the new people, no? Yung mga pumuposte sa administration. And where are we headed? Have you talked to them about our media apostolate?
Ay, wala pa. Too early.
Too early. So yun. So we'll wait for that when you have that one-on-one with the new president, Father Bobby Yap, here at Radyo Katipunan. And then it's also the feast of the Guardian Angels ng grade school.
Today. Yes.
Is there a celebration? Normally, di ba, inabutan ko pa yan, nag-fair sila, di ba? May mga rides. Pero ngayon, wala.
Kasi instead of eating, di ba? Usually may pakain dyan sa grade school.
Yes.
They donated 1,000 lunch boxes. Yung bang tawag dyan? Sa Quirino Hospital for the frontliners there.
Galing. Sino nagbigay? Mga faculty or mga parents, PTA?
Yes, grade school. The admin, the teachers. Yung ikakain nila today, dinonate na lang sa Quirino Hospital. Galing, di ba?
Karaniwan yan, ang hinihintay namin sa college, dated to, either the Feast of the Guardian Angels sa grade school or yung open house ng dorm. Kasi yan yung pinakamaraming pagkain. So yun, aside from the major fair. So Father Nono, since Maria, we're waiting for Maria na, parating na raw siya. Can you tell us about the connection of Radyo Katipunan and Rappler? Well, how are you kind of related? You were telling me, oy, meron palang ganun. At nagtaray ka pa na tipong, I had her in my show already. Oo naman, I saw that. And that was on Phone Patch when she was so hot, no? When was that again?
Ano lang I think kababalik niya lang from the US.
Yes.
Face yung mga kaso dito sa kanya.
And how did you maneuver the tie-up with Rappler ng Radyo Katipunan?
Well, actually, when we were very new, sabi namin, we have to have a kumaga balita, di ba? Show. And of course, sa atin, reputable naman yung yung Rappler. Ang hirap naman kunin siguro ng iba. So marami tayong kakilalang mga Atenista working in Rappler. In particular, si Paterno Esmaquel was my student sa high school. Sa Ateneo High School.
Okay.
Kinukumbinsi ko pa yung mag-eswita kaya lang may mga bituin na nakikita. Anyway,
ikaw ba wala kang bituin?
May mga niligawan. Anyway, binuking And then Paterno told me na he discussed it with his bosses in Rappler. Pag lang daw ako, magsulat lang ako ng formal letter asking for the news, every day, from Rappler. And okay naman. Sinulatan ko si Chai Hofilenya, who also teaches here at the Ateneo, journalism.
Yes.
And she said, "Sure, Father." So that's how we started with Rappler.
So what do? We lift their news and we just deliver it here.
Yes, we get the news from their website every evening. And then that's our morning news.
Yeah. The Q
Si Anthony ang nag-complete and nag-edit and nagbo-broadcast.
Correct. With the accent, di ba?
Yes.
So, yun ang maganda doon. But then, sa ang cue kasi natin mamaya, pagdating niya, it's the welcoming remarks of our boss. So you'll just say thank you. So, talagang yun, the real partnership with Rappler. And then, well, of course, since meron kang one-on-one with my classmate naman, Father Provincial si Junjun Viray, can you tell us ano yung gusto mong tanungin kay Maria if you're not given the chance na later to ask her?
Well, actually, ang more of concern
yes.
How are the cases, di ba, against her? How are they, di ba, now, especially in this pandemic, kasi suspended raw yung mga cases, pero this October nag-resume na.
Yun nga tapos noon, di ba parang yung nasa news convicted. So they're on appeal. So yeah, magandang tanong yon, Father Nono. Let's survey everyone here. Brother Ed, what's your concern sa kanya? What do you want to know from Maria?
Well, I at least want to figure out how they're trying to broaden their reach. I understand that Rappler is very much concerned with providing good quality news, and given how there has been several attacks on press freedom here in the Philippines, just how to ensure that they widen their reach, go beyond their echo chambers, especially as we're leading up to the elections already.
Yeah. And then, gaano makaka-apekto when government has this pronouncement na they'll put their own fact checkers. Di ba? Parang, di ba? Suddenly, yung, kasi Rappler is part of it, di ba? Yung fact-checking mechanism ng Facebook. Yeah. So, may kanya-kanyang fact yung mga tao. So, we'll ask that also later. Lester, ano yung concern mo kay Maria?
Siguro I want to ask, say for example, kasi sabi ng Pangulo, he has comments about Facebook, di ba? And Rappler has been operating mainly on online platforms. And if Facebook gets affected, and what will be the future of free press given that parang pinag-iinitan yung Facebook na Malacanang ngayon?
I know. Parang at this point, yun nga, the same mechanism that propelled our president to power is the same thing that he's trying to criticize at this point. Probably not working to his advantage, no? Ang hirap. Tapos, pero ito, do you think maaalma yung mga tao or people will feel the loss if Facebook's gone? Or will it affect the president's popularity, or has it affected the president's popularity already? Kasi walang survey yun yung tanong ngayon. At this time, wala tayong yung sinasabi lang, na-erode yung popularity, sinisisa nila dun sa inept handling ng pandemic. Pero wala tayong data. People are sad, people are disgusted, or people are feeling low or naghihirap, pero wala tayong direct association, di ba? Kung nakaka-apekto doon on how they perceive our leaders at this point. So, magandang tanongin yan mamaya. Maxine, sa isang bagets sa katulad mo. Bagets! Merong bagong commercial ginagamit yung growing up with Aga Mulak, so pumabalik yan.
I saw that.
May gawa, di ba? Yun, the company of your dad is the one who produced that commercial. Anyway, Max, what's your concern with Maria?
So apart from that, I was also going to bring some stuff that Sir Lester already brought up. But then when I was reading up on Rappler last night, I found out that it was formed it's female founded. So it was formed by Maria along with 2 other female reporters. So I'm curious about that. If it was a conscious effort for Rappler to be an originally female team. And then I'm also curious about whether it was intended for young audiences at first, because I remember in high school it was very appealing to us, the younger generation, because their publications were so nice, so colorful, and very easy to digest. And also I read an article of hers where she brought up a very prominent movie franchise, which I will get to later as not to preempt. So I'd like to ask her about that too.
Ganda. At least the lighter side of her.
Yes. Father Nono will back me up there for the movies, right? I'm kidding.
Mga nanonood ng pelikulang mag-isa. So ako nanonood din siya mag-isa. No, but anyway, no, she texted me na, almost done. So segue na siya dito. Ikaw naman, Justin, ano yung concern mo kay Maria? Justin was so elated kasi, uy, ang ganda lang ng timing kasi yun nga, with the celebration of World College Radio Day, dito tayo giving our share no, sa not only sa community natin na Philippines kasi, well, she's Time Magazine's Person of the Year ng Justin pala 2018, hindi 2019. So, Justin, what's your concern with her?
No, it's not concerned. I just wanted to hear, words of inspiration from her bilang kapwa natin siya kasama sa industriya, industriya talaga. So yun. So parang yun lang, especially for us a college radio somewhere, down the hill, and then, and we wanted to get, parang gusto nating humugot ng ng lakas din sa mga katulad niya na hindi natatakot, who's not afraid to speak out the truth, and to really face all these challenges that's being hurdled to her. So, yun.
No, going back to your program, yung Usapang Kapatid, was that born when Maria was there in ABS?
No, I think Maria was still there, pero not through her.
Yes. Because, well, hindi kay Maria, hindi sa news head. Yun si Gabby Lopez, diretso sila sa boss talaga eh. So, no, but I know it was during her time in the news department. Ako naman, I didn't want to wake up really early anymore. I was doing the breakfast team with sina Bam, Atom Araulo, Ria Tano at Catrillo. But she asked me to do the morning show again for ABS-CBN. So hindi lang ako makahindi during that time. So I brought Ryan Agancilla and Bianca Gonzalez from breakfast to the morning show of ABS-CBN. Yun, parang kinailangan kasi she was trying to yun yung time na si Corina napunta sa gabi, si Karen Davila yung naging mainstay doon sa TV Patrol. And there were a lot of things that Maria instituted. Yun nga, parang after that, the links for international networks, parang gano'n, nagkaroon ng ganong representasyon yung ABS-CBN na beyond lang the Philippine territory. So, yun. And ano yung tama niya sa inyo aside from hindi naman kailangan may accent, pero kailangan you know your language, no? Hindi ba yung parang ang sinasabi ng mga tao na nakakalalaki, siguro yun if is that her her relationship or dynamics with the president? Because I was surprised because in the first few moments dun sa kanyang documentary yung 1,000 Cuts, sinabi niya talaga na kala niya rin, no, like all of us, we thought that Duterte would certainly or parang sincerely want to make changes na talagang na pwedeng ma-effect niya dito sa ating bansa. So, parang nagulat din siya sa nangyari. But you'll be surprised, no? She started with the government channel. Hello, Maria. Ayan na. We're just talking about you. Ayan na. So, ayan. Well, first, we're celebrating World College Radio Day. And it's such a good time that you're here, and it's also your birthday. But because it's your birthday, we have the whole network trying to greet you and then honor you. So we have our boss here, Father Nono Alfonso, like to welcome you kasi grabe pala may tie-up pala Maria with Rappler, yung Radyo Katipunan. So Father Nono, go do the honors.
Yes, Maria, hi. I hope you remember tonight.
Yes!
Okay, so we're glad that you're very healthy and well. Happy birthday!
You know you don't celebrate your birthday when you get to my age, so thank you.
Yes, but we're very happy we are very happy for ourselves as well that you're there inspiring us to keep the fight. Anyway, so I'm just here as a station manager to welcome you and to thank you for the tie-up between Radyo Katipunan and Rappler.com. We get our news from Rappler.com courtesy of Chayo Filenya. So thank you so much for that partnership.
No, we're so happy with it. Thank you, Father Nono.
And you're really working on your birthday. Let Father Nono shoot his question because he told us that he'll have a moment with the Father Provincial after this. But Father's very concerned about your cases. So Father, go.
Yes. Last year I was able to interview you konti pa lang yung kaso. So I'd just like to ask, can you update us on the cases? Meron ng isang ruling, but you were, the last time we heard, you were appealing it.
Yes. So there are, I always put this in the context of everything else, because when you put it all together, then you see why the cases are there. And then you see also why we take the positions we take. So in 2016, the social media attacks began. And, I'll use this, the one of the attacks then, which I laughed about, was journalist equals criminal. I was like, by next year I'll be 35 years a journalist, and so I was like, there's too much of what I've done in the past. So I was laughing, which was kind of stupid of me now, because when you say journalist is a criminal a million times on social media, it becomes a fact to some people. And then in 2017, the State of the Nation address in July 2017, President Duterte essentially came top down and said, Rappler is a criminal. In fact, there are three buckets of charges that they then filed in 2018. So right about a week after the State of the Nation address in 2017, July, we got our first subpoena. 2018 was the year that the government filed 11 cases against us in about 14 months. That's 2018. And then 2019 was the arrest. That was when I got 8 arrest warrants. I posted bail 8 times. In about a 3-month period, I was arrested twice, even though it's really clear that I am going to, submit myself to the process, because I'm absolutely certain I will win the case. If it not, I will watch what I say. And then, of course, in 2020, journalist equals criminal, June 15th, a former colleague and I were found guilty in a regional court. So in an RTC. So we've appealed the cyber libel case to the Court of Appeals. And this is kind of a very strange time for me, because I never thought that would happen. If you think about it, just for this cyber libel, this case, this story was published 8 years ago. It is a story I didn't write, edit, or supervise. And the law we supposedly violated wasn't even in place when we published the story. So, I read Kafka again, but I feel like Joseph K. in the trial. So, since then, our cases fall into three buckets. Cyber libel. I have two more complaints that have come in just in the last few weeks. And then I have tax evasion, 5 cases. Those are all ongoing now. Look, the way that the government was able to file tax evasion charges against us is by saying that Rappler is a dealer in securities. We're
Yeah.
not a stock brokerage firm, so we don't have to pay those taxes. So that's another. And then the last one is the mother case. I call that the securities fraud, and that would include anti-dummy. It includes the SEC administrative charges. I mean, think about it. It all began because of an SEC administrative charge, kind of like ABS, I suppose. A minor regulatory agency gave us a shutdown order in January of 2018. And we keep fighting that. But we'll see where it goes. I guess, where is it, Father Nona? Since the last time we saw each other, I'm flabbergasted, uh, because I want I want to believe in the rule of law. I really do, because I think you cannot have democracy if you don't have rule of law. Uh, and so we continue to fight each one. The conviction is it's kind of like a line in the sand that's hard to go back on, because in order to convict us in the regional trial court, they actually changed the statute of limitations or the period of prescription of libel
Yeah.
from 1 year to 12 years. And that's a really bad precedence to set. But anyway, sorry, you can tell I can talk a mile a minute on.
Yes. But we're some.
Sorry. But okay lang. You know what? I guess it's like, do not voluntarily give up your rights. This is what I know. For every Filipino who is watching what is going on, who is feeling what is going on, the age of social media is an age of feeling. But we have to stop thinking fast. That's the feeling, and think slow. that we have to demand rational, logical explanations. And I think the last part, never voluntarily give up your rights
Mhm.
and make sure that you know this by now. I've used the phrase hold the line
Hold the line.
because
Yeah.
we want the government to succeed.
Mhm.
Because if the government fails, we all fail, right? And when you fail in COVID, you die.
Yeah.
The same way that a lie during COVID can kill,
Yeah.
right? So we want the government to succeed, but at the same time, we hold government to account.
That's
And there are trillions of pesos that are being released. There is tremendous power that is being consolidated. And rule of law. Law is one of the few ways that we can hold power to account. And slowly we're seeing this erosion. So I guess, sorry, what a long winded answer. The answer is that I feel like I have no choice, me personally, but to fight for my rights. But as I'm doing that, I feel every Filipino has no choice.
Mhm.
Because if you don't fight for your rights, you will lose them.
But how has that affected the operations of Rappler, Maria?
Noel, you know, Noel and I used to work together, right? um,
I had to leave my breakfast team, my very comfortable breakfast team with sina Atom, Bam, Ria, because you needed me in the morning show. So sabi, I had to wake up 5:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning for the 5:30 show. But then, Maria, we've always looked up to you and then said, you have to succeed, right with your cases. So how's the organization, your organization dealing with all these things? Is it affected at all?
um, forged in fire. When you're forged in fire, you're stronger. You know, look, I mean, all of us are tired about what kind. I mean, we work all the time, and Rappler is a startup. We always thought that we would work really, really hard and then we can kind of relax. You can't relax, and certainly not during COVID, right? So I think that, you know, I quote this guy all the time, Nietzsche, who said, "What doesn't kill us will make us stronger." I
That's
hate
true.
to use the word kill in during this war. You know,
Mhm.
I mean that I guess what happened to Rappler is it's almost self-selective. The people who are there, they know, we know why we do what we do. Uh, we know that if we know that it's important to keep doing what we do, and in a weird way, Noel, you know, we've had to manage a lot of people.
Yeah.
And in any organization, there will always be frictions,
Mm-hmm.
personalities, you know, I want more pay, I want more power.
Mm-hmm.
And since the attacks of the government really began, what happened is we pulled in and talked to each other a lot more. We were forced to be very, very honest about everything, including worst case scenarios, because we drilled the worst case scenarios, right? Like, so for example, when Pia Renada was banned from the palace, thank
Yes.
God a few days earlier, we just drilled. We did a drill of how fast you can take out your cell phone and go live. And what things do you have? What workflow do you use to do that? And so when she was denied entry to the palace, it's like we had just drilled it, right? So she had just drilled it. So yun, parang imagine telling our large group of people in ABS then, Noel, that you know we're gonna drill you getting thrown out or
Yeah.
you getting harassed or getting shut down, right? We're gonna drill this, and that's kind of what we've had to do. And then I think the other part is, uh, well, like we did things like early on when the first cases began, I actually had a general assembly and I
Mm-hmm.
told everyone, you know, everybody will have different risk appetites, like
Mm-hmm.
what you and your family are comfortable with. And I said, you know, we won't take it against anybody if you would like to leave. And actually, you have to give people the option out, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if you want to leave, we will, you know, talk to us and we'll write you a recommendation. In fact, at that point, I was thinking I could even recommend some of them to go to ABS. You know, it's so yun. And the best part, no one from editorial left. No one from editorial took. So yun, parang I guess I have to always look at the silver lining. There always is, there always is a silver lining, and gain hope from that, and try to learn what it's teaching you.
And go back to the purpose. No, we all have the same purpose. So we're joined by the other anchors here in Radio Katipunan celebrating your birthday too. So Brother Ed Colmenares from Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan is here. Shoot your next question, brother.
Sorry, my question seems a little bit more serious. And we know elections are coming in 2 years. Hopefully, a no Noel scenario will not happen. But and we're concerned. I know that Rappler is very much committed to providing good quality facts, research, and news to people. But my question always has been, how do you plan to expand your reach to go beyond the usual echo chambers that Rappler is being listened to? Because I at least a part of me still thinks that with good and proper information, we can form the decision of the people who will be casting their votes on 2022.
So, and I think, Brother Ed, I know who we are and we know who we're not, right? Like, we're not ABS-CBN in the sense of a masa. Hindi kami masa. In the sense of our audiences, right? I mean, I think there are some of our editorials are now written in Filipino, but we're a very small group. We're 100 people. Look at the difference when I shifted from managing ABS-CBN to Rappler. 1,000 journalists in ABS-CBN minimum, right? But sometimes more. And then at our highest, 100 people, and only about 25 are journalists, because Rappler is tech, it has graphics. So it's 1/10 of them. I guess, let me answer the core of your question, which is, how do we get the facts to people for election day? And that isn't a Rappler problem. In fact, I would say it's a societal problem. It's a Filipino problem, since we spend the most time for the 5th year running on social media globally. And the biggest problem that I see is that social media, Facebook in particular, because 100% of Filipinos on the internet are on Facebook. Facebook really is our internet. And, part of the reason all of the things that have happened here are connected to the rest of the world is because we are a testing ground for these tactics of mass manipulation. So the problem we have is that the largest distributor of news, Facebook, is essentially a behavior modification system, right? And let me explain that. Each of us throws in our data with every post that we write on Facebook, and that data is broken down, and machine learning then creates a model. If you watch The Social Dilemma, they create the doll of the guy. So Ben has his model that is being manipulated by the 3 different levers behind the scenes. So the model is created, that machine knows you better than you know yourself. And then artificial intelligence pulls it up and takes your moment of vulnerability to a message and sells it, whether that message is to a government or to a company. And then that they nudge you. So you're essentially being manipulated all the time on this, right? And then here's the kicker. Lies laced with anger and hate spread further and faster on social media. That's the way the platform is designed. And then aside from that, it also builds divisiveness into our society. So, think about the difference between 2016 and 2020 in the Philippines. And I'll tell you one tech decision that was done by every social media platform. It's not just Facebook. They grow their platform by using the concept. They recommend to each of us friends of friends, because A/B testing has shown that if you recommend a friend of a friend, you're more likely to click on it. You're more likely to click on it and ask to be friends, right? So here's what happened to the Philippines in 2016. In 2016, we were all in the middle. We agreed on the facts, right? But what happened is, as the Facebook recommended, or as YouTube recommended friends and friends, the pro Duterte people began growing, and they moved further right. And the anti-Duterte people, when they grew their networks, they grew further left. And over time, we grew further apart. We tore apart the public sphere because of the algorithms and the design of the platform. I don't think it's a coincidence that the leaders who do the best on social media are us against them people. They demonize the enemy, which they create enemies and then they demonize them, which is what President Duterte does. It's what President Trump does. I can name a whole bunch of kind of digital authoritarians, populist leaders who use social media. And so us against them is a terrorist tactic. It tears society apart. And that's what we have to live with. So how do you deal with this come 2022 or come campaigns? This is the biggest problem. So this is what we work on all the time. I mean, Noel, in 2016, Father Nona, you knew this also, we exposed the propaganda machine and we were attacked because of that. But I think the way we're doing it is by first demanding accountability from Facebook. So I'm a member of this global board. It was just launched last night, last night was the first Zoom call, but Carol Cadwalader, the British journalist who was behind the Cambridge Analytica series, like she was the one who blew the story open. And then Shoshana Zuboff, she's a Harvard professor who wrote Surveillance Capitalism, and a whole bunch of other people, including a former prime minister. There were 25 of us. They pulled us together and we launched the Real Facebook Oversight Board. And we made 3 demands. They were all based on US elections. Because the idea here is there's a little more than 30 days before US elections. And when you're using a platform like Facebook where lies spread faster, like let me shorthand that by saying that Facebook is biased against facts, right? Because if lies laced with anger and hate spread further and faster, then it's biased against facts, which are boring. It's biased against journalists. We tend to be boring. I'm more boring than Noel. It's like that's a reality, right?
That's not true. You graduated as a theater and dance student.
I know, and I wasn't very good at it. That's why I became a journalist. No, sorry. No, but it's like, I guess it's biased against facts. So this is a big problem. Without facts, you cannot have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. If you don't have these, you don't have democracy. And then the question I have for US elections right now is, how can you have elections? How can people choose who they're going to vote for if they don't have facts? When you're being manipulated, and they've already proven that Russian disinformation, that the growth of the extreme right, the alt-right, the far right, that these are all connecting globally in some way, and manipulating Americans. These are all documented already. So if that's the case and we're being manipulated without our knowledge, is there free will? And we choose. How do we debate ideas if we don't have that? Anyway, sorry, I dumped everything all on my tongue.
Yeah. But
so that's brother. And I guess my question to you about elections: number one, we need to hold social media platforms to account, and I think we should begin that now. Because if we don't, it's already been 4 years, right? And then the second is that it's funny. People always ask me, but Maria, everybody is attacking, and the kind of toxicity now on Facebook is painful to watch from Filipinos who I never thought would be like this, right?
That's true.
I think that the thing there is, don't be a monster to fight a monster. Bono said it.
Maria, I have to go. So happy birthday once again. I have to go. Bye-bye, Noel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Father.
So Maria, first the Inquirer, then you and the Rappler, and then ABS-CBN, and then Facebook. It's been a long trend of media suppression and oppression reduced to technicalities. No, so how do you feel about this, and what can be done?
I think you see the same tactic over and over,
Yeah.
right? Because the Constitution guarantees the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech,
Mm-hmm.
freedom of the press, all of these things. It's in the Bill of Rights. But what we are seeing is death by a thousand cuts.
Yeah.
And it's actually targeting specific people to show you what will happen to you if you
Mhm.
speak, right? So that's kind of the game of
Yeah.
the administration. And I guess that's the reason I don't stop speaking, because it's an intimidation tactic.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, look, I think Senator De Lima has had it
Yeah.
the worst. You know,
Yeah.
she's attacked the worst on social media. She has been put in prison. It's more than 3 years that she's been in prison without really a proper trial. And I think the problem that I have is we have allowed it to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking as a journalist, I think at that point in time, it happened so early that I actually gave the government the benefit of the doubt, because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, maybe the government wouldn't do all of these things or
That's
say these
true.
things if they didn't really have evidence. I gave the government the benefit of the doubt. It's very hard for me to stick to that now because I know me, right?
Yeah.
I know what the government violated my rights.
Yeah.
So I know the abuse of power firsthand. So then I look back at Lila de Lima and I think, what are we doing? Have we failed? I guess that's the other part, Noel. It's like we
Yeah.
have to think that an attack on one is an attack on all. Uh,
Yeah.
I say that about journalism. I think that's about protecting the rights of citizens in a democracy. If one
Maria,
person loses
but
their
they didn't close Inquirer, but it's suffering from the loss of advertisers. Then Rappler, a lot of cases, and well, including yours, no. And then with ABS, well, I this is the first time we'll talk about this. Did you imagine that it was our former organization was closed down? Did you expect that at all?
I had, I mean, I'm kind of sad to say yes, in the sense that it is a sign of power, right?
Mm.
So the first is what happened during the pandemic is a complete consolidation of power. The
Yeah.
shutdown of ABS-CBN would not have been possible if we didn't have of coronavirus.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
we weren't stuck in our homes, we all would have gone out.
Okay. Yes.
That would never have happened, Noel. The stars would have
It was a tipping point, no? We thought it was a tipping point. But did you think, well, ABS did enough in trying to fight for their rights?
Siguro dapat tanong ka. Diba? No, let me I
Yeah.
will say, you mentioned something earlier about the Inquirer and
Yes.
losing advertisers. Rappler lost advertisers as well, right? If you think about it, January 2018, when
Mhm.
when the cases came against us, by April, we dropped 49% of our advertising.
Wow.
We were forced to pivot to find a new sustainable business model,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we went to our community to ask for help, right? So I think that's the first, is that you have to be transparent about what you're going through.
Yeah.
And I don't know if ABS did that. That's kind of, I'm backing into your question, because I
Mm-hmm.
know my former colleagues, I know my former
Yes.
boss,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And I felt that, I think the difference is that in dealing with things like this, you're forced to figure out how you're going to fight. Are you
Mm-hmm.
going to
Mm-hmm.
fight frontally, or are you going to negotiate? Are you, I guess these are all things. The difference when you have a big company like the SCBN is that negotiation should work. ABS didn't do anything wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The franchise should have been renewed, and everything that was thrown during these extended periods are, again, like social media, a distraction.
Yes. No, I saw kasi the interview with Sheila Coronel and she said, no, parang ABS could have done more than equate the whole thing to just a humanitarian issue. Kasi it became an emotional issue of the one of the what how many thousands of people losing jobs when it was really a point against the consequences of losing a channel of truth or real journalism instead. So parang it wasn't only a humanitarian reason, but it was a fight for the truth, fight for democracy. But it wasn't like it really wasn't underscored.
You should say that. So you when you ask me that, I'm the former head of news of ABS,
Yes,
and I
yes.
know the levers and the balance that the managers would have been going through.
That,
I think maybe they may not have taken the problem as, or no, I know they took the problem seriously, right?
mhm.
But these are choices that you make. The same way that, like, for everyone in this call, like, how vocal are you going to be about your rights? What if you're threatened? What if you stand to lose a lot?
True.
What if you stand to go to jail? These are all things. It goes back to every person has a different risk assessment.
Mhm.
Having said that, ABS-CBN, the shutdown of ABS-CBN opened, like, there's a huge tear in the cultural ecosystem. Yes, it is a freedom of the press issue. I mean, to not say that,
Mhm, mhm,
to pretend that that's not the case, is
mhm,
disingenuous. And our spokesman for the palace says that all the time. Says it about me.
mhm.
Maria makes this a freedom of the press issue. Now, well, even if ABS-CBN said that, they would get the same response from the palace that I've gotten. But way of saying that I think these are judgment calls that we had never thought we would be forced to make, and we don't know what will work.
That
And I think Rappler is lucky in the sense that we're poor. We have no other businesses. We have nothing to protect.
That's a good point, no? It's different when you talk about journalists and media owners, because media owners would have other interests, no?
And to do well and to keep doing journalism and making money. The first time we made money was 2019 when I was arrested a few times. so yun, I guess, Noel, let me ask you, what would you have wanted ABS-CBN
I
to
would have wanted Cardo to have organized something before that happened. Di ba? Parang, uy, mawawala probinsyano. Anong reaction nyo earlier on? But the pandemic was just something that hindered us from organizing. Yun yung problema. But then, parang people should see beyond the loss of jobs for the 11,000 people. Di ba? Parang it was something more that we lost actually during that process.
Right now we kind of see this in our data, like the lack of the star magic. I mean,
Yeah.
things that there is a tear in our cultural fabric right now. It's
Yeah.
very strange because ABS does reach places in the Philippines that we haven't had, and there's a lot of ripple effects. So
Yes.
it shut down. I mean, aside from the money, the advertising industry, and the stars and the journalists who have been laid off, there's a
Mhm.
lot more. It will be easier to manipulate Filipinos, right?
That
Because no matter what you say about ABS-CBN, uh, courage is built into the
yes. Yeah.
fabric, and I think that you let. I was waiting for the journalists to be let loose.
That's true. And then we'll talk about fear and caution now amongst journalists, no? But Lester here has some questions. He's from the Jesuit Music Ministry, but had that question a question on Facebook, and how to deal with it. Go, Lester.
Hi, Miss Ressa. A few weeks ago or a few days ago, the president was throwing some comments about Facebook because Facebook has shut down a number of uh, advocacy pages of the government. So there are a couple of scenarios that can happen. So number one, maybe they will restrict Facebook access in the Philippines. Number two, what if Facebook, would would not act on those advocacy pages in the future because it's a chilling effect that the government is saying something about them. And then I guess number three is since Rappler has been operating as a news platform online and has operated on Facebook, what do you think will be the impact of it with the comments of the president against Facebook?
And with Filipinos really heavily on Facebook, Maria, will this have an effect on the popularity of the president?
Oh, wow, that's almost wishful thinking, Noel. No, that let me no. I think the first is what was the takedown? So there were two. I call them influence operations or information operations, meaning they are attempting to manipulate, and they are fake accounts or use fake identities, right? So one was from China. It was from Fujian province, and it was seeding. It first targeted Taiwan, then Indonesia, and it was most successful in the Philippines. In the Philippines, it supported President Duterte, Amy Marcos, and Sara Duterte.
Mm-hmm.
It attacked me and Rappler and
Mm-hmm.
seeded pro-Chinese Navy propaganda, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it also used AI, fake photos,
Mm-hmm.
and then the last thing it did was it began to make fake accounts for U.S. elections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the second information operations or influence operations was here in the Philippines. It was Filipino, and it was the police and the military.
Mm-hmm.
This is a network that we had done a few stories on because it was red tagging. It was trying, it was inciting hate against people like Sarah Elago. Um, it
Yeah.
was it was trying to paint activists as terrorists,
Mm-hmm.
and the here's the part that isn't as clear.
Mm-hmm.
When we say when Facebook said that it is based on behavior, it's not about the content they post. It's about the people behind it. So that advocacy page, in quotes, advocacy page,
Mm-hmm.
hands off our children. One of its administrators was a military captain,
Mm-hmm.
and they named two other soldiers, but they were hiding their identity, and they were trying to manipulate that advocacy page. Was seeding propaganda, pretending to just be from parents. And again, these are tactics that are used by groups outside the Philippines, like QAnon,
Mm-hmm.
the alt right, uh, and it's insidious manipulation. It's fitting that the soldier who was found, he's a captain, was part of civil military operations, meaning, in the old days, I would say in the late 80s, we would call that psyops.
Mm-hmm.
And now with social media, civil military operations online
Mm-hmm.
is a whole different ballgame. And I think one of the things that's clear is that in Facebook's case, because they own the platform, this
Mm-hmm.
goes against their rules. And that's why they were taken down. Asked whether or not what impact this would have on Facebook, I don't think it would have much of an impact on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
because it's evidence based. It's not emotion. It's not, the evidence is very clear and you can look at it in the data. And they haven't gone that far, but you can go to Graphica and to DFR Lab, who were given the data, and they analyzed the data. So you can see they named the three soldiers, right? And there are more.
Yeah.
In our investigation in Rappler, those were just anonymous pages. So we knew the soldiers hid their identity, and it
Yeah.
was actually Facebook that found them. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't see that Facebook would retreat, um, and it depends on the government. I also don't see the government wanting to lose this huge power and capacity that they built on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
because you know I guess the irony of it is that Facebook, which has allowed all the attacks against
Mm-hmm.
journalists and human rights activists,
Yes.
is itself now being attacked.
Yes.
So it's really a slippery slope, and I guess that's why it goes back to accountability. there has to be greater transparency. We cannot be manipulated. We should not be manipulated. And the government itself has said they have standards. The military originally denied that they were part of it, and then the president's message actually implicitly said that they are, right?
Yeah.
So these are all questions, and I guess the last part is bullying works to a point, and then at a certain point, uh, I hope people stand up for our rights. Because if we don't, then the few people who do stand up will collapse. You
That's
know, I mean, again, here's another ironic statement:
yeah.
"Let a thousand flowers bloom." Who said that?
No, but here, Maria, again, it's a funny question, but then so many people are hooked on Facebook. But how will this affect the popularity of the president? There has been no survey done yet during this pandemic, but has his popularity eroded? Have
Um,
people
this
become more critical?
this is a chicken or egg question,
Yeah.
Noel, because the information operations on Facebook, right? They have been going on since 2016. And
Mm-hmm.
when you say a million times, President Duterte is amazing, fantastic, the best president we've ever had. When you rewrite history for the Marcoses and say the same thing about former President Marcos, it has an effect. And so real people, so think about this when Facebook uses CIB, coordinated inauthentic behavior. What was CIB in 2016 has now affected real people who now believe that Marcos was a great president and isn't corrupt and didn't steal $10 billion. Uh, it's changed the way people think. So, sorry, to your question, there is the influence operations where a lot of money has been poured into Facebook to do this has buoyed up the popularity. I believe that's what our data shows us. And we have done lots of stories on this. And then what happens? You have a statistical survey group coming in and asking Filipinos in their home
Mm-hmm.
where they know where they live, they know they have their numbers, and it's an atmosphere of fear,
Mm-hmm.
violent. Would people really, aside from being convinced on social media, the bandwagon effect, there's also fear. So these are the reasons why, like, people always tell me, yeah, but Maria is really popular. And I go back and really look at the numbers. When
Yeah.
you look at the numbers and you look at the role of social media, and then you add violence and fear, how realistic are the numbers? Because when I ask Pulse Asia and SWS, I
Mm-hmm.
ask them how they account, how do they balance fear?
Mm-hmm.
How do they balance that? And I don't think they ever really do. They stick to a methodology that worked in an open society, but I'm not so sure works in our society today.
That's true. Here's someone who's fearless, someone from the Facebook generation. Huh? Cholo from Pop Talk.
Hi, Cholo.
Hi, Miss Maria. Happy birthday. And before everything, I watched Death of a Thousand Cuts and I've been following you. Thank you for being an inspiration to all of us young people and holding the line. And one of my friends actually worked on your fan cam, birthday fan cam. So super funny. That was a really great video as well. But my question, I guess, in relation to the other things we were talking about earlier, how do we encourage Filipinos, of course, being in this online generation, to be more vigilant, especially that now that we know the things that, for example, the social dilemma has presented to us, and now that you're trying to make Facebook and all other social media accountable, how do we embrace this double-edged sword of being in social media, of course, because we rely on it so much, but we also know the perils of it. So how do you, I mean, how can we, of course, with Rappler and with all the other journalists, approach this from this standpoint? Yeah.
No, it's a great question. I'm going to give you three steps, I think, right? I think
Parang sweet na nag-homily points, no?
no, because I think the first part is understand how you are affected by the medium you're using. In the past, television is far more manipulative, and I say that in a nothing like social media, but it was far more emotional than print. That's why I did television, because it at least there's still a craft and a profession when you produce for a television screen. But now with social media, the tactics of addiction to slot machines, they're built into the design. So when you actually go on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, there's a reward punishment method in there that keeps you coming back. It's mildly addictive. And when you're on it, you actually have increased levels of dopamine. You have increased levels of oxytocin, which is the love hormone. You feel, even though there's a great book by Sherry Turkle that talks about being alone together. Because in the end, as we move forward from the time when we felt good in social media, now we feel the haves versus the have-nots, right? There's that. So the first is, please understand the medium. And there's a great book that just came out June 15th. It's called The Hype Machine. It's an MIT professor named Sinan Oral wrote it, and that's 20 years of experience in coding, in tech, in engineering. And then he goes into neuroscience to show you how it plays with our brains and our emotions. So that's the first understanding. Social dilemma, you talks about it in a different way. Um, I think the second is understand that facts are in danger, that we have different sets of facts now for a polarized society, and that was done on purpose. Because when you don't trust, so what's the end goal of all of the activity on social media that is pro government or state sponsored? The end goal is not just to make you think President Duterte is amazing, or and the messaging right now in the pandemic is no one has ever dealt with anything like this. Tatay is so tired, you know. So despite all of that, right, the problem there is the end goal is not to just make you believe that one idea. The end goal is to make you distrust everything. That's Russian disinformation tactic, right? So if that's the case, if it's chaotic and you don't know and you're just afraid, the voice with the loudest megaphone wins. That's President Duterte again, the administration. So understand that facts, I'm sorry, I think that's me. I will try to stop it. Facts are really boring on social media. It doesn't spread as far and as fast. And then the third part is because of these two, because of the first two, you have to actively organize. You have to organize your friends, your family. You have to, I guess the question I was forced to ask myself a few years back, 3 years back, was, you know, um, what are you willing to sacrifice for the truth? Each of us, if each of us asks ourselves that question, then we begin to work, because we're going to have to sacrifice something for the truth in today's day and age. And if you do that, then civil society, right? Look, the problem with civil society right now is how can they act? How can they hold government to account? How can they tell you about climate change if the facts aren't getting to you? So that's why in the end you go back to our physical communities, to the people we trust, before that trust is torn apart, right? That's part of what social media tries to do. So those three, right, which is, you know, hold the platforms to account, understand what they do to you. The second is, I guess, in terms of facts, support the journalists, support the people. You become a truth teller. Let's take it beyond journalism. Support the truth tellers. I hope Radyo Katipunan is doing that, right? And then the third part is organize. You have to organize your communities. And that, Brother Ed, is also part of the answer to your question about our elections. If we aren't organized, if we think someone else will do it for us, uh, I'm not sure our democracy will survive.
But before Maxine asks her questions, Maria, do you feel that the press, the journalists now, are more fearful or bordering on caution and there's so much self-censorship going on, and people are saying it's the worst kind of censorship when you self-censor. Well, aside from Rappler, what can you name as parang someone, a major establishment that's kind of brave and courageous in fighting for the truth at this point?
Noel, I think there are a lot of reporters who want to do the stories, who continue to do the stories, and I think that oftentimes there's a balancing act among managers and owners.
That's true.
So, it's hard. Noel, I can't. Our peers have to come together because we know it, we see it.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
and me saying that we are or aren't doesn't help. But I do think that we all know what's at stake.
Yeah.
And here's an anecdote from 1986. When I
Mhm.
first came to the Philippines on this, I was on a Fulbright and I
Yeah.
walked into the government station.
Mhm.
And Point Makaraig was the anchor then.
Yes.
And she was a friend from like third grade and the only
God
one of the
bless
people I
her.
remembered, right? Isn't that funny? Anyway, um, I was a director for the newscast in Channel 4, and one of the things I watched were older people unlearning self censorship. It
Right.
is a tough one,
Right.
but if the environment demands it, then it goes back to the individual risk appetite of every person who writes. And I
Right.
guess that's where I put my faith back in Filipinos. I think we have fearless journalists. I think we have reporters who want to tell the story. I think the problem is how do we get it to you
It's true.
when the distribution platform is biased against journalism?
That's true. But Maria, in a sense, do you feel there's an effect, or at least the public opinion is shifting, lalo na now with the inept handling of the pandemic?
Chicken or the egg again, Noel, because uh, right now we're in our 28th week of the
Yeah.
lockdown, right? Yesterday, this is day 201
Actually,
of
202 yung if we start on that Saturday, no? Before the, yeah.
correct, right? And so we haven't really stepped outside, and the world that we knew is gone, and I
Yeah.
think we have to first accept that, right? So uh, I don't know what will happen next, in the sense of um, how far, how far will power go? That's one. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen this, right? So something that's shocking to me that the
Mm-hmm.
ombudsman, whose job it is to put forward greater transparency and hold
Yeah.
officials to account, is the one who says you are not going to get the sow ends of
Yeah.
public officials, so that we no longer can do lifestyle checks, right? It's upside down. The world is really upside down, and I think I kind of I've said this frequently now, like the people who are elected because of social media, the people who do well there, the candidates who do well, incite us against them. Right? President Trump is very similar to that. He uses this kind of language that
That's
incites hate in some way. And when they get elected, they then take the power that is given to them in a democracy, the
mm-hmm.
levers of a democracy, and
Mm-hmm.
turn it against democracy.
That's
And
true.
that's kind of what we're seeing now. So sorry, Noel. Your question again was,
Well, is it making a dent now on popular opinion?
ah, oh well. So I said the chicken or the egg, right? Popular opinion is very fickle. It's
Ah,
extremely fickle. I think that the time when we saw the most unhappiness with the administration, hashtag oust Duterte now, and then it became hashtag oust Duterte. Remember?
now paalam
On
Duterte, remember this week?
sorry.
Paalam Duterte, hashtag paalam Duterte this week, no?
But the one that was really at the peak that had the most was Oust Duterte now, and that was around April 1 when President Duterte told the police to. Remember, he said told Filipinos stay at home or else, and then he told the police shoot them dead. That's a direct quote. That's
True.
the night we had like 500,000 tweets trending. The problem is that ABS-CBN is already shut down,
Yeah.
and nothing has really happened. We've normalized this. And so, is it enough? Where's our political leadership? Where's the
That's
opposition?
true also, yeah.
What exactly? Uh, what is the vision of what the Philippines is going to be, to become? What kind of Philippines do we want? Right?
Mhm.
There's not. I should ask you because I would like to have a Philippines that has my values.
Yes, correct.
Speaking of shared values, we have this woman in the team, the youngest actually in Radyo Katipunan team. Max, shoot your questions.
Hi, Miss Maria. First of all, I'm sure you've heard this a lot, but happy birthday.
Thank you.
And I'm going to start with actually a very light question. So I read an interview you were part of where you said, my heroes were always a combination of Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. You have to be ruled by logic, but if you're only ruled by logic and you don't touch your emotions, you will make the wrong instinctive call. So me as a movie geek, I really like that quote from you. And now I just want to ask you, living in the world we live in now, how do we find that middle ground between logic and emotion?
It's a tough one because, and I think partly social media again, right? You can see, I think it's the root of so many changes that we are just understanding, right? Social media is a thinking fast. You know, Daniel Kahneman um, wrote this book called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow about the systems of thinking of human beings. And thinking fast is emotional, it's instinctive. It is, when we were cavemen, that's how we survived. Thinking slow is rational. So Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, right? Um, the problem is that social media prioritizes thinking fast. It rewards thinking fast. It rewards anger. It rewards hate. Um, and what I've seen in the younger generation, sometimes I think Max even younger than you, because Rappler's median age is 20
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
old. And there's a generation gap, I would say, between the millennials and like my
Mhm.
generation. Um, and there's the thing of emotions above all, that this is your truth, right? If you can tap your emotions. In fact, in ABS-CBN, di ba, Noel? Bubog. Di ba? Di ba? So, I mean, so the problem that I see with that is taken to an extreme, it is very self-indulgent. It doesn't allow us to build, and we need to build our society and normalizing this kind of um, the emotions, this kind of uh, hyped up emotion, and putting emotion always at the top also means that we're not thinking enough. Which, look, I have my problems sometimes with entertainment. Noel knows this because I will say, "Pwede ba? Can we add something in?" Like when I took over TV Patrol, for example, right?
Insight. You were telling us more insight. Ayoko ng chismis. Yeah.
Goes against ratings, and that is it, right? So this is the problem with social media. You can feed a kid sugar all the time, but that kid will get diabetes,
That's
right?
true.
So you
Yes.
have to. So I guess that's what I worry about, that if we don't put rationality, if we don't put evidence-based thinking, we will make the wrong calls in a pandemic.
That's
We will have the wrong values in place, i.e., patronage, versus uh, let the best person who let the person who knows how to do the job do it, right? Merit
yeah.
versus patronage. So I think we have to find the balance. You tell me, Max. I mean, like, this is a debate we have with our team all the time, but Rappler is also different because we work really hard, and our millennials work really hard. Really hard. Like
Yes.
12-hour days are norm. And this is still from when I was with Probe. And my generation always was that, if you don't feel good right now, you hold it in and you punch through it. And
Mhm.
that's a different way than what social media allows you to do. I guess the last part that I'll say about emotions in social media is that in many ways, social media allows you to unleash your worst
That's true.
and
That's right.
rewards you for unleashing your worst. and President Duterte has given permission to Filipinos to be really nasty to each other and denigrating to women, right? Women are attacked at least 10 times more than men on social media in the Philippines today. So I worry about the values of your generation. I worry about the values of the future. So it's personal and it's also the values of democracy. That makes sense. I don't know if I answered your question. I think my answer is that we always will need both, and it becomes more of a challenge today because not only are we living through a once in a century pandemic where we're stuck at home, we're afraid of losing our jobs. We're afraid of catching a virus, right? We live in an environment of fear, but the very platforms that deliver us news and connectivity play on our fears and our anger.
Grabe. Well,
That's right.
talking about women, you have more women questions, di ba, Max? Sabi niya,
Yeah.
yung Rappler daw is really composed more, or the leaders are really women, and now the women leaders are the ones doing well in the pandemic, Maria.
I think that's left brain, right brain again. It's Captain Kirk and Spock, diba? Kasi look, like again, I forgot to say this in that thing. Like the part that is missing in our societies now is empathy. Empathy, right? Like compassion. Because this is what we should be encouraging in each other. So I think women know how to do that. I think, if you talk to Rapplers, they'll probably tell you, because we're also disciplinarians, we're strict. you know? But uh, it wasn't by design. I mean, this is when we were coming up, when we left ABS-CBN, we were all, Glenda used to manage ANC. Beth was
Hi.
managing all the newscasts. Chai was head of standards and ethics. And I was head of news, right? I mean, and then we took several other guys. Thank God Gabby wasn't mad at me. At least I did paalam. But yun, parang we were old enough to realize that we didn't know what we didn't know. And that's the other part. I hope that your generation, Max, you don't know what you don't know until it's too late.
That's true.
That's so true. That's so relatable.
Ang tinuro mo sa akin, Maria, trust those people na walang ibang interes. Di ba? So, parang you ask the advice of people who don't have a say or don't have anything at stake. So that's it. Go, Max.
Interesting. So, okay, I guess a more personal question. This is actually pulled up from Instagram. But what's next for you? Like, are you looking? This is from Jepiner5, by the way. He asked, is she looking forward to settling down with her own family? And what is your favorite thing to do when there's no work?
so I think on the family, right? Like when I was maybe turning 30, there's a period of time when you will decide whether you are going to have children or not. I'm way beyond that. I turned 57 today. I'm old. Like I said, by next year I'll have been a journalist for 35 years. I bet that's older than you, Moms. Is it? Are you 30? Yeah, I will.
Oh, baby.
See? So, I think that, I guess, here's the last anecdote I'll say. I couldn't keep a cactus alive in my apartment when I was working for CNN. So, I suppose you could say that, like Probe and Rappler, that these are my babies. And my family, my family, I've grown close. Our family's grown closer as we've gotten older. But we're also all over the world. And that's the other part that I've always lived with. My family was never all together in the same place. I don't have kids, although I guess Rappler is a kid. We're 8. We're turning 9 next year. Wow. And then settling down. What's next? I don't know. I mean, here's the other part. I used to say that, 10, 20, 30s, 40s, 50s. I actually pegged what each decade was for you. So your 10, of course, you're growing and you're with your family. 20s are exploration. 30s, 20s is when you're learning what you're going to do. 30s, exploration yan. 40s, you make a choice and you're master of the universe. And 50s to me was reinvention. Um, 50s was Rappler for me, right? And then 60s, wala pa ako doon, pero tingnan natin kung ano siya. But I think I think the only thing I will say is what keeps me excited is learning. So
Yeah.
whatever choice you have to make, you make the choice to learn. Um, I didn't really answer your question because I'm not sure what's next. Because then here's what's so interesting to me. I have spent my life both local and global. Um, and the problems that we're facing with Facebook, think about it like this, right? The problem, President Duterte has gained more power not just because of what he's done, but also because of what Silicon Valley has done.
Yeah.
So local is global and global is local.
Yeah.
So the world has never been as connected as it is today, and that's kind of fascinating. That's a whole other
Yeah.
uh, challenge for me because we have to fight the same battles, whether it's in the Philippines or anywhere else around the world.
Or teach again, Maria? Do you see yourself teaching again?
I feel like we teach all the time because
Yes. Yeah.
exactly what Rappler is, right? Like I think the other part that's
Or write more books?
definitely
Yes. Yeah.
labo. Ang daming pwedeng isulat.
Because you've been asking daw Tina Monzon Palma to finish her book. One of my idols again. No? You've been prodding her to finish her book. So ikaw din yata, you're due to write a book with all these learnings.
I wanted to write about Rappler, but it's already passed. Now it's really, how will democracy survive or die? How a democracy dies. That's what we're living right now. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. We all play a part in this.
We'll have our station manager ask his question. Justin, ayan na. Ang kanang kamay ni Father Nono.
Hi, Miss Maria. Nice to see you here, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Well, to begin with, of course, we look up to you as our source of hope and courage. Despite all these things that's happening right now. Um, in fact, today we are actually celebrating World College Radio Day. So it's very timely your presence here with us. Now we just wanted to get your insight on how significant college radio is, or what's the significance of college radio? Do you think would be for during this time? And also, on a more personal thing, or it's more of how do you actually put yourself intact despite all these things that that you're experiencing with the cases and all. And lastly, just one tip for a workaholic like you, I suppose.
Working on her birthday, huh?
Yes.
This isn't work. This is fun.
Thank you.
no, no. I guess, and that's the other part. What people will call work. It's not work yet. It's
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
fun, and I guess that's the other part. Like what we try to do in Rapper is we take what you want to do, and then we walk down that path together because it's what the organization needs.
Yeah.
So your question on college radio. So I think
Or journalism, I guess, no? College journalism.
so look, I hope you're taking what you do on air and putting them as podcasts or putting them online, right? Because I will say that one of the good things about the spoken word, about what you hear, is that it is very difficult. It's one of the few content that we create that isn't torn apart by social media.
Yeah.
So and I'll explain that because right now when you read a piece and it's torn apart into four sentences and then it's shared on social media, the context of those four sentences are not determined by the reporter. They're determined by the algorithm of the social media, and it depends on the news feed that you have, which is personalized to each of us, right? So we don't see the same thing. Our contexts are different. Radio and podcasts are the last things that hold their content because your voice, If you're listening to it on SoundCloud or on Spotify, um, you're able to have you're creating the context. Um, I think it's the your college radio does the exact same thing that we're trying to do, which is to build community. You are building a community, and that's critically important. Your community is young, trying to figure out who they are, trying to figure out how they fit in the world we live in. What does the world we live in demand? How can they change the world we live in? And these are all um, at a time when the world we live in demands action from college students also, right? So and again, very unique time period because the pandemic is once in a century. I mean, once in a century in the I guess this is Fauci said this, right? This is the worst. It's a public health crisis that happens once in a century. So that's one. The second question that you had is, I think it's more um, I've been asked this a lot. How do you handle fear? Are you afraid? Uh, yes, of course. And I'll tell you, I remember when it dawned on me. It was April 2019, and it was actually uh, I was in New York in a panel about the launch of Trial Watch, which is
Yeah.
the Amal and George Clooney's foundation. They had asked me to come
Yes.
launch this, and I was sitting on a panel. My right was a journalist who had been jailed in. Was an Al Jazeera journalist, Mohammed Fahmy. He had been jailed in Egypt
Mm.
for 300 some odd days. And then on my left was Jason Rezaian, who
Mhm.
is Iranian American, and was
Mm.
jailed in Iran for 544 days. And I realized that I was the only one who was free, was still free, didn't
Okay.
have to deal with this, right? And I thought, oh my God, I better like, what if I do go to jail? You know, because I can't keep speaking the way I speak without having confronted the fear. So
Mhm.
here's my, and this is kind of like a lesson I've learned all throughout, starting with when my family moved to the States and everyone was bigger, taller, spoke faster. I mean, when my family left, our language is Tagalog. I spoke Tagalog. I didn't speak English very well, in fact,
Mhm.
so, uh, and the advice I gave is the same that I live with now, which is whatever you're most afraid of,
Mhm.
touch it. And then you have to hold it, you have to embrace your fear. And in your head, imagine it and take the sting out of that fear so that it robs the fear of its power over you. Uh, it took me like the fear of jail. Look, I still grapple with it because it is
Mhm.
a possibility, right?
Mhm.
But it took me like 2 to 3 months, and it was actually Amal who, at that point, it was so George Clooney, by the way, made coffee for me on an espresso machine. But that was when they were the ones who said, what are you doing? And that was really when it began to hit me that this isn't the Philippines I knew, and
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
to do, I have
Mhm.
to like it. So that's how I handle it. Embrace your fear, rob it of its sting, and then expect the best, hope for the best. I guess that's hope for the best, but expect the worst. Be ready for the worst.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
a really schizophrenic way of living, but that's the way I'm living right now because
Mhm.
you have to hope for the best. I have to hope for the best of I have to hope that Filipinos are still basically good, that
Mhm.
our justice system, that there are judges who are touching my cases that will live with the spirit of the law, right? So that's the second question that you have. What's the third one? The third question was about, uh, so I just wrote, how do you deal with your fear? What's the last part of your question?
No, what's just a tip for workaholics.
I workaholics. Yes, yes. I mean, I guess so. Maybe it's generational because because I also love 10,000 hours. That was Malcolm Gladwell who wrote that
Mhm.
you can't be good at something until you put in 10,000 hours. And technology has made me have to relearn the world. That's part of why I find it so weirdly exciting you know.
Yeah.
And when you're under attack the way we are, you get to see all the tactical changes of how the social media machine attacks you, how the propaganda machine attacks you first, and then I can research. I can look at the data after. So I guess it depends on what you mean by workaholic. So why don't I turn that around this way and say and suggest that you find your passion.
That's
You
true.
know, and somebody used to say, finding your passion is the wrong advice. Uh, because how can you make money when you find your passion? Look, uh, no one is making any money in a pandemic right now.
That's true.
Our economy is going to tank, and I don't think the government has given us the right numbers yet. We won't know until we do. But you have to. How do you deal with this? You, you build. You build,
Yeah.
and you can build on what you love.
Yeah.
So sabi, something you taught us nga, not money but integrity. Really. So, Max has may pahabol na question from a viewer. Yeah, go. Oh, you're muted. Okay, go.
Sorry, there. So this question is from Cholo Malilin, one of our RK anchors. He's asking, what did you think about the documentary A Thousand Cuts, and did it achieve its purpose?
Depends on what version you saw. There are two now, right? The one that was shown in
Version of
Philippines.
Maria?
Huh?
There be an updated version?
There's the one that's being shown in the States and is rolling out, I think, in Asia and Europe soon. It is about 20 minutes shorter.
Short.
Yeah, it's the one that was shown here on Independence Day on June 12th is about 20 minutes longer.
I like that scene when you were with your mom. Was it your mom and yun? Basta your family. Tapos noon, you were packing your bag. You see, then painting the scenario. Sabi ko, huy, at least Maria in her vulnerability. Kasi bihira nakikita ng mga tao yon, di ba?
My family, but Noel, my family tells me I'm a robot because I have a very emotional family. That's the other part, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
I have an emotional family, and so the way I also grew up was to not be emotional, was to be Mr. Spock. And then I realized if you don't touch your emotions, then you're emotionally retarded. That's not a good thing. Oops, I couldn't even use that word, right? So many things have changed. But hi, how do I say that? I guess A Thousand Cuts was I knew that we were living through something very different, and I wanted it documented. It's different when it's rap. We're documenting ourselves. We take a lot of things for granted. Ramona Diaz, her cinema verite style, she captures everything, and that's for posterity's sake. The film itself, when we saw it at Sundance, so they brought the four founders, Tia and Rambo, Tia Renada, who was our palace reporter, and then Rambo Tabapon. We all went to Sundance, one of the last times we traveled. And um, when we were in the theater and everybody was watching, we could feel their emotions. It was shocking because it's even though we lived through it, you having it all pulled together like that makes you just go, ugh, it's like a punch in the gut. It makes you realize now they updated the film with the verdict, the June 5th verdict. So ends like the one you saw had the ending of us. I told Rappler, so it's like we have to go back. Like hate is coursing through social media, but I don't think that's normal. You can't build with hate. You destroy with hate. You build with love, and that was how that was what Ramona captured at the end. Now it ends with the verdict of guilty and the press conference where we were wearing masks, and I talked about how we need to fight for our rights. So it's a different film in that sense because I mean, if I was from the outside looking in, I would be going, "Why is that person foolish?" Foolish ba? Kasi you can see where this is headed. But I guess I think that it's not a fait accompli. And what I do now will help shape the future I personally will have. And there's so much at stake for Rappler and for our nation, it's a good battle, right? So anyway, that's a good that my answer is it's really unnerving to have a camera follow you all around. Very unnerving to watch yourself. I prefer being the person producing and directing.
Interview, yeah. Anything, Max? You're done?
One more actually. This is from the students. They just want to know that us as students, we look up to journalists and we look up to people who are brave to speak about what they believe in and for what's right for all of us. So as students, a lot of people want to know how can we or what can we do to help protect the journalism community?
First, thank you for asking that question. I think the first is work with us, help us. You don't have to write the stories, but um, evidence-based reasoning is going away really quickly. Build your communities that protect facts. Talk to your family and friends. How do we fight a propaganda machine? We will have to actually uh, come together. And news organizations in the Philippines aren't very good at working with each other because we grew up in competition with each other. And I've been saying this since
Yeah.
2015, diba? In fact, I think you'll find Rappler retweets every news group because what we've seen in our information ecosystem on Facebook is that the news groups have been pushed to the periphery because we're not working together well enough, and the disinformation networks have taken over the center. That's good. So the first is please uh, don't be part of the problem. That's the first. Look at the facts, spread the facts, uh, know who you are, try to define. This is an age where you're going to determine who you are. What are the values you stand for? And I say this all the time, like, this is the age when you will draw the line. You'll draw the line where if here's the line, and on this side you're good, this side you're evil. This is the time when you will create who you are. What's your identity? What do you stand for? And sometimes we don't know. Like when I graduated, I didn't know because I was a bookworm. And you grow your way into the answer, right? So that's the second is what values do you stand for? And then the last part, I ask that question, what are you willing to sacrifice for the truth?
That's
It's a
true.
battle for truth now.
That's
And when you have that, what you're willing to sacrifice, go out and do it. Work with the journalists. We need your help. The other reason we need your help is because you bring fresh energy, you bring youth. Part of Rapper's secret is when the oldies like me get really tired, then our young ones are inspirational. And that's it. This is going to be your battle. We will like we're unfortunately we kind of wrecked it. My generation didn't Diba? Imagine we're right back where we were. Diba?
That's true.
Something wrong.
No, but same principles, no? So, Maria, thank you very much for
Thank
spending
you.
1 hour of your birthday here. Mahirapan na kami to ask you again, but then can you like pitch in a plug for Radyo Katipunan na how important is keeping a radio like this, a radio network like this? Well, what do you think is the importance of it? Yeah, go.
Of course. Look, Radyo Katipunan builds a community around the voice of the people. You have to ask the questions. You have to listen to each other. You have to form who you are together. You can't do that on social media. So listen, build, and grow.
Ang ganda naman nun.
Well said.
Natuto ako sa iyo, Noel!
Sabi ko nga, Maria, sabi yung integrity number one, sabi niya, hindi tayo yayaman dito, Noel. In the end, you ask yourself, yung walang bayad yung integrity, no? And then the commitment, sabi niya, you'll survive in this business with two things. Sabi niya, 2 C's, the competence and commitment. So yan yung pinangahawakan natin. And in the end, yun, kung saan ka magaling, kung saan yung passion mo, sinasabi mo yan palagi, dun ka dapat makilala, dun ka dapat mag-thrive, but in the end, it's not for you. you're doing it not for yourself. So it's all lessons well kept. And so we're kindred spirits. Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
At this juncture, I just like to ask or request that because of course our dear Noel, Sir Noel, will also be celebrating his 30th year in media. So we'd like to get also like a few
Maria, thank you very much.
messages for Sir Noel or anything you'd like to share. Secrets.
Oh. Well, the thing about Noel is the spirit. His spirit is it's bubbly from within, comes out and brings out the best. Because again, light, diba? Light and love is still, my God, now I sound so fudgy, but that's actually, at a time when our environment is so full of violence, fear, and hate. What I pulled Noel into this horrendous morning shift, right, where he wakes up at 3 in the morning, and he did it. I think it's that combination. Like he's able to move in many different worlds, and by moving in these different worlds, he connects different types of people. He's what I would call a boundary spanner, and everything that you accomplish happens because of these boundaries.
And Maria, I miss our tight hugs. No words, but really tight hugs when we see each other. Thank you very much. Virtual hugs for now. I love you very much and happy birthday. Wherever this fight will lead us, kasama mo kami. Sabi nga, di ba, nakakahawa yung takot, pero nakakahawa rin yung tapang. Maraming salamat for showing us that. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday again.
Birthday. Grabe. Well, that's it with her. Kumusta kayo? What is your takeaway? Max, ikaw muna. Natanong mo ba dapat mong itanong?
Yes, I did actually. She answered. Actually, there were some questions I didn't need to ask now because they were answered beforehand. But I guess there are a lot of nice takeaways. There are a lot of nice things she said. I remember what stayed with me, and this was one of the first things she said was, we all want the government to win, especially at a time like this, because we all want to be okay. And then how she said, don't be a monster to fight a monster, and that we all need to stand up together because now more than ever that we're all isolated and we're at home, we really need to work together to make things okay. And then, the last thing I'm going to say is how she talked about my generation and our values, especially now, because she says the battle is ours, and how she talked about it's a bit of a tough battle because we're also dealing with what the generation behind us has left behind. So she's not here anymore, but if I had the opportunity to respond to that, I would have said, yes, the battle is ours now, but I have faith in my generation and that we have values, because I know that as long as there are people there, people that we see fighting for what I said a while ago, fighting for what's right and for the betterment, because at the end of the day, we all want to win. We all want to get past this. We all want to get past whatever challenge we're faced with right now. So back to what I was saying, whatever challenge that is, as long as my generation sees at least one person fighting for that, knowing that it's going to lead to a more comfortable and better life, we'll be okay. We'll have those values and we'll echo it to the next generation. So there, I really like that. That was my takeaway.
Very well said sa kanyang corona. Anyway, Brother Ed, how di ba yung generation natin feel with parang abandoned, not naman abandoned, or we've failed their generation. Did you feel that? So what's your takeaway from this discussion? Thank you, and thank you for joining us. Sana tuloy-tuloy yan pag meron tayong major guest.
Thank you, Sir Noel, for the invitation. I'm not sure actually when Maxine was talking about her generation, because I feel like I'm caught in between several generations. Hindi lang halata. But one major takeaway for me from Maria, and I think it's a confirmation of what we're doing here in Radyo Katipunan and also with us, is really to create communities that are based on facts, that are committed to action, and will want to work for a better future, especially with the younger generation as represented by Maxine here.
Thank you.
Ibang klase, no? And now kasi she's in that legacy part already. The writing books and then training people. Yun eh. Kayo yung titrain na yan, Maxine.
Yeah, I'm in the learning part. If I remember correctly, she said your 20s are the learning phase. So that's where I am.
Saan ka, brother, doon? Nasa
exploration part pa yata. Pero parang hindi ko na nafe-feel na exploration.
Sige, ikaw, Lester, nasa exploration pa rin ba? I doubt. Kasama mo ang aso mo to explore?
Sa akin siguro, I'm just curious what the Facebook Oversight Board will do. She said that they just started it the other day. So I'm curious how that will pan out, how it's going to impact them holding social media accountable. And then every time I listen to Maria and I read her articles, I read her tweets, I just parang nakakadagdag lang ng lakas ng loob kasi matapang siya, parang nakaka-inspire to, make sure that I continue to be courageous and try to hold people accountable in my own way. And siguro parang hold the line, sabi nga niya.
Totoo. Kasi di ba, parang ngayon, pag tinanong mo yung mga bata, ang hero nila, Cardo, media hero, di ba? Si Cardo Dalisay, Well, back in our generation, ayan, makikita na yan, Brother Ed, it was Maria, Checha Lazaro, Tina Manzon Palma, and Dong Puno, I guess. Yun yung tipong para sana habang nabubuhay sila, we can get them here in Radyo Katipunan or some interview like this. Justin, ikaw, nakaatang sa'yo yung trabaho by being a broadcast journalist now. What's your takeaway in this discussion?
Yeah, gusto ko lang yun she was able to really dichotomize yung social medias. Kasi nga, it's actually donning a two-faced personality. Na parang yun nga, it's an avenue for those truth seekers and truth sayers, and then those naman na purveyors of lies. And yun na, ang hirap din isa ilugar yung sa itong, for example, itong college radio stations, mahirap ilugar yung sarili nila kung sa tingin ba nila this will be a potent platform for college radio stations to also go online and to do social media. But then again, yun na, she echoed it na yung traditional media still is the most potent of all.
That's
diba? And siguro yung isa na lang talaga na tumatak lang sa akin dun sa mga tanong ko is yung sinabi niya na yung the one thing that lacks right now in this society is empathy.
That's true.
Yun na lang.
That's right.
It sums it all up.
And everything has gone to the dogs like Lester. But yun nga, parang kahit nga sa hayop, di ba, kung extension ng kabutihan natin yan, di ba? Just ikaw nito. We'll end with the songs that we're premiering. Ayan na. There are songs from the Jesuit Music Ministry. Ayan na, yung unang-unang Paskong Walang Hanggan ni Arman Ferrer is now available sa Spotify and all digital platforms. And we also released Mitch Valdez's very first formal, yung nga digital release, parang digital single, she's a Bette Midler of the Philippines, diba? So she did the Christmas version of From a Distance of Bette Midler with Bayhana. And the third one, we're challenging everyone. We will be pretty generous. We'll be very generous in giving a prize for those people kasi start na pala ng schooling sa mga public schools at gagawing parte ng flag ceremony or recess yata yung Prutas Pilipinas. So kung may mga tao na pwedeng makagawa ng mga videos, personal videos sila, lagay lang yung hashtag Prutas Pilipinas personal video, we can give a prize kasi yun nga, yan yung Prutas counterpart ng Bahay Kubo. So we'll play that, Justin, bago tayo Tapos doon, nasa iyo pa naman yung Hold the Line, no? Magandang balikan yun yung Hold the Line campaign na sinimula ng mga journalists sa kasamang taga-guide doon ng Ateneo. So maraming salamat. We'll continue featuring these people. Sana nga the ones we said, yung mga media heroes natin masama. But next week, ito excited ako, Lauren Jogi will be with us. One of the first people who gave me a job in Tatak Pilipina. I started doing Tatak Pilipina with him as executive producer and director. So Now he's head of the Star Magic now that Mr. M is transferring to the Kapatid Network. Tapos siya yung problema talaga sa TV production ng ABS-CBN nung nag-shutdown. So we'll have him next week, and probably Robbie Domingo will join him in the show. So maraming salamat. We'll continue leveling up. Thank you, Maxine. Thank you, Maxine. Thank you, Maxine. Thank you, Lester and the dog. Thank you, John, for joining us, Father Nono. And ito, yung workaholic na naghahanap pa rin ng advice. Sabi niya, know who you are and know what you want and love what you do. So yun, maraming salamat, Justin. Thank you very much. See you again next week dito sa Level Up. Thank you.
We were hunted, jailed, and tortured.
We lost husbands and sons. We saw comrades taken and held our ground at the sound of guns.
We have reported through decades, down generations,
and under the whip of dictators.
We do not forget.
We stand watch in city after city,
in quiet towns, in the halls of power,
and in the line of fire.
Our freedom is everyone's freedom.
Truth is our politics.
We listen.
We ask questions.
We capture the story.
We expose lies.
So the people will see.
So the people will know.
So the people can act.
We remember our history.
And the men and women who stood fast.
In an unbroken line of freedom.
We have not forgotten.
We will carry on.
We are reporters.
We are journalists.
We are the free press.
And we hold the line.
Masarap ang prutas sa Pilipinas. Makulay ang prutas, masustansya ang prutas. Vitamin, anihin ang prutas. Kainin, inumin ang prutas. Para sa masigla, magaling at masayang Pilipinas. Makatas na siniguelas, suhat dalandan.
Mangga, kalamansi, todo guyabano.
Mangustin, sampalok, pati nabuko.
Prutas ng Pinoy, pampalakas ng totoo.
Masarap ang prutas sa Pilipinas. Makulay ang prutas, masustansya ang prutas. Vitamin, anihin ang prutas. Kainin, inumin ang prutas. Para sa masigla, magaling at masayang Pilipinas. Atis, saging at pinya.
Pakwan, duhat, melon at langka.
Ubas, lanson, strawberry, mais.
Prutas ng Pinoy, ito'y walang mintis.
Masarap ang prutas sa Pilipinas. Makulay ang prutas, masustansya ang prutas. Vitamin, anihin ang prutas. Kainin, inumin ang prutas. Para sa masigla, magaling at masayang Pilipinas.
Ang marang, papaya at durian.
Avocado, kahel, kaimito, bayabas.
Chico, peras, mansanas at chesa.
Prutas ng Pinoy, tsa, iligaya ka. Kakaibang kasoy, kamachile, makopa. Dayap, aratiles, santol, granada. Rambutan, mabono, may balimbing pa. Prutas ng Pinoy, nakakabuhay talaga. Masarap ang prutas sa Pilipinas. Makulay ang prutas, masustansya ang prutas. Vitamin, anihin ang prutas. Kainin, inumin ang prutas. Para sa masigla, magaling at masayang Pilipinas.
Prutas sa Pinas, lasa'y panalo. Kainin man o inumin o ihalo-halo. Vitamin ay aprobado. Pampalakas, garantisado.
Iwas sakit tayong mga Pilipino. Masarap ang prutas sa Pilipinas. Makulay ang prutas, masustansya ang prutas. Vitamin, anihin ang prutas. Kainin, inumin ang prutas. Para sa masigla, magaling at masayang Pilipinas. Mabuhay!
Tinanong mo sa akin kung ano ang gusto ko upang mapaligaya ang aking Pasko. Bakit mo pa kaya kailangan sabihin sa akin yan? Para naman kasi hindi mo pa alam. Ang aking araw-araw ay iyon ang iniba. Mula pa nung ikaw ay aking nakilala, pinasayaw ang ikot ng aking munting mundo, binigyan ng dahilan ng bawat oras at minuto. Ang bawat kong pangarap iyong pinalitan, binigyan ako ng lakas, tiyaga at tapang na harapin ng bawat tanong at pag-aalilangan, dahil alam kong ikaw ay katabi ko lamang. At sa tuwing pagsikat at paglubog ng araw, nagsisimula at nagwawakas sa salitang ikaw. Kaya't huwag mo nang itanong kung ano pa sa akin ang kulang, dahil bawat araw kasama ka ay Paskong walang hanggan. Araw-araw ay iyon ang iniba. Mula pa nung ikaw ay aking nakilala, pinasayaw ang ikot ng aking munting mundo, binigyan ng dahilan ng bawat oras at minuto. Binigyan ako ng lakas, tiyaga at tapang na harapin ng bawat tanong at pag-aalinlangan, dahil alam kong ikaw ay katabi ko lamang. At sa tuwing pagsikat at paglubog ng araw, nagsisimula't nagwawakas sa salitang ikaw. Kaya't huwag mo nang itanong kung ano pa sa akin ang kulang, dahil bawat araw kasama ka ay Paskong walang hanggan. Dahil bawat araw kasama ka ay Paskong walang hanggan.
distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagle takes to flight. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the voice of hope, it's the voice of peace, it's the voice of every man. From a distance, the world sings Silent Night, like a soft embracing song. From a distance, the words sound sweet and clear, and all is bright and calm. From a distance, we are instruments marching in a common band, playing songs of hope, playing songs of peace. They're the songs of every man. God is watching. God is watching. God is watching. I know He's watching. God is watching us from a distance. As you stay, you're the first to know every angel did say. From a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. From a distance, I just cannot comprehend what all this fighting's for. From a distance, there is harmony. Do you hear it echo through the land? It's the song of joy, it's the song of peace, it's the heart of every man in the season of universal love. This is the song of every man. God is watching us. God is watching. I know He's watching. God is watching us from a distance. God is watching us. God is watching. I know He's watching. God is watching us from a distance.